I love this moment, when the audience knows the show's about to begin. A great show tells a great story. It transports you. It makes you feel. This summer, one of our greatest stories will be told in a way we've never seen before, when the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics is staged here on the Seine. The wait is almost over.
Well, maybe you saw it all, but today's opening ceremony had so many memorable moments.
Really was. From the start, the ceremony featured plenty more than just the parade of athletes down the River Seine. Lady Gaga had the opening musical number dazzling in her rendition of the French song.
Oh, you mean Mon Truc and Plume?
Thank you. She says she was completely grateful and honored to open the Paris Olympics. And while she isn't a French artist, Gaga said she wanted nothing more than to, quote, create a performance that would warm the heart of France.
Frequency's weird and, it's sounding a little bit strange. And I'm like, if you don't get this right now, I swear to Lucifer, I'm gonna, I get a little bit mad.
Namaste. Namaste.
Now, the time has come for us to select one courageous young man and woman for the honor of representing District 12 in the 74th Annual Hunger Games.
A couple of anonymous figures also kind of stole several moments throughout the ceremony. One was the secret torchbearer running through Paris and its famous landmarks. At one point, they even ziplined across the river as boats passed underneath. The other was the mysterious horse rider.
Which I'd like to share with our viewers now, and that is of that spire, from a ground camera, completely engulfed in flames. As you might imagine, we have hundreds of different feeds which come into our main headquarters in New York, and one after another with different views on this spire, watching as the flames began to lap around its base and then just lick up the outside of it until eventually it was engulfed.
From the ashes, we rise up. We had Ash Wednesday. We want to rise up with Jesus at Easter. And I believe that there'll be some rising from this dying.
They galloped across the river before the night before delivering the Olympic flame. That was pretty cool. And of course, our American athletes, all smiles. LeBron and Steph Curry leading the U.S. men's basketball team. They joined their fellow Americans, waving, smiling, celebrating, even in the rain. The energy and excitement was visible with the team because they soaked in every moment.
Soaked in a lot of rain.
Soaked in every moment.
The mysterious horse rider, I don't think we really needed to know, but the hooded torch guy, we never got the end of his story? Or her story?
I didn't.
That story?
Did you?
We got to talk about this presidential crap just for a moment here. You know, just you older folks remember this, or mothers, fathers have taught you this. I'll tell you who they said wasn't presidential. I don't even know what the hell presidential means, but they told him that he wasn't presidential. And that guy they told, all these people that wanted to say you're not presidential, that guy was Harry Truman. And Harry Truman, with what he did in dropping and having the guts to drop the bomb in 1944, saved billions of American lives. And that's what Harry Truman did, and he became one of the 3 great presidents of the United States. And here's a man who would do the same thing because he's going to become one of the 4 great presidents of the United States.
Donald Trump says Anheuser-Busch deserves a second chance. The company became a conservative punching bag after a Bud Light marketing push involving transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney. Sales plunged. And then yesterday, seemingly out of nowhere, Trump wrote on Truth Social, the Bud Light ad was a mistake of epic proportions, and for that, a very big price was paid. But Anheuser-Busch is not a woke company. Now, here is maybe a bit of context. GOP power broker Jeff Miller announced that he's hosting a fundraiser for Trump. He is also a lobbyist for Anheuser-Busch. Tickets are going for $10,000 each.
It's a beautiful day for a joust.
Indeed. Sun's out. Got my lucky loincloth, cold Bud Light, comfy throne. I don't have the plague anymore.
Look, it's the Bud Light.
You, hold my beer. You, hold my other beer. Whoops. One more. All right, let's tap this keg. Giddy up, Peanut.
I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire.
Peace and security.
The lesson of history is that peace and security do not come easily.
Peace and stability that people on all sides long for.
2 states for 2 peoples living side by side in peace and security is not a vague slogan.
Your new empire? Don't make me kill you. Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy!
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole... That's going to be the least of...
Well, I do congratulate you. Fantastic.
Oh, man, it's pretty red. Looks kind of like a massacre or something here.
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole... That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
It's this is the official portrait.
It's kind of ghoulish. I think he might be a more attractive person in a photograph, I guess.
It's a bit more modern, I would say.
I mean, the face actually shows a lot of character. I'm not quite keen about the red. It looks like floating head and floating hands.
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Mr. Stark, could we pick up now where we left off? Mr. Stark, please.
Yes, dear.
Could I have your attention?
Absolutely.
Do you or do you not possess a specialized weapon?
I do not.
You do not?
I do not. Well, it depends on how you define the word weapon.
The Iron Man weapon.
My device does not fit that description.
How would you describe it?
I would describe it by defining it as what it is, Senator.
As?
It's a high-tech prosthesis. That's actually the most apt description I could make of it.
It's a weapon. It's a weapon, Mr. Stark. I hate to inform you.
If your priority was actually the well-being.
No, my priority is to get the
American
Iron Man
citizen.
weapon turned over to the people of the United States of America.
Well, you can forget it. I am Iron Man. The suit and I are one. To turn over the Iron Man suit would be to turn over myself, which is tantamount to indentured servitude or prostitution, depending on what state you're in. You can't have it.
Look, I'm no expert.
In prostitution, of course not. You're a senator. Come on.
But a real necessity for the stability in the entire region.
Israel and Palestinians, they can live side by side in peace and security. This is our vision, and this is our commitment.
Of a new deal, peace and security and friendship.
My hopes and dreams for Israel are to live in peace.
July 26, 1948. President Harry Truman signs an executive order to effectively end racial segregation in the U.S. military. It happens a year after Truman signs the National Security Act, which creates the Defense Department and the CIA.
The greatest dinner I've ever had. Come on, let's get it.
I had some family that did stuff for the CIA. Because my dad, he was someone who would do medical procedures on high-level CIA people.
Whenever I go to a family reunion, half the people in the room are former retired CIA. I've had family that got like 7 Silver Stars and stuff like that, but it's all classified. Some of the highest decorated people in the country. I was recruited by patriot elements inside the shadow government.
Hooked up at the Psych Warfare Center run by the Pentagon at UT. I'm not even supposed to talk about the fact I've been let in there repeatedly. These guys were like colonels in the Army and Air Force generals.
53.
Cuando nadie en el mundo habría apostado un centavo por la supervivencia de la revolución.
Fidel Castro leads a group of rebels in a failed attack on the Moncada army barracks in eastern Cuba. More than 5 years later, Castro ousts Fulgencio Batista from power and begins his own decades-long rule in Havana. 1952. Eva Perón, Argentina's charismatic first lady, also known as Evita, dies of cancer in Buenos Aires. She was 33. 1856. Playwright George Bernard Shaw is born in Dublin, Ireland. Shaw's work Pygmalion served as the basis for the Broadway musical My Fair Lady.
Look there, we've got the same kind of symbology on a Catholic basilica, which is kind of ironic. I'm here today at Washington DC with this big shrine to the Catholic Church here of the Immaculate Conception to have a deeper look at what it's all about. What an eerie place. So let's go down into the belly, the underworld, where masses take place, into the heart, underneath this, the tomb of this huge temple.
President Trump, who attended Fordham, a Jesuit university, came face to face today with the first Jesuit pope. The rest is history.
You say you were going to take a picture?
See, look, even here it's saying to receive the scroll and to break open its seals. Oh my goodness, I didn't even realise this was here. I used this picture in a video the other day. That is Apollyon the Destroyer. Mars, the Roman god of war.
And 1948.
You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want.
Mick Jagger, frontman of the rock band The Rolling Stones, is born in Dartford, England.
There's really no path to the presidency for Donald Trump without the state of Florida, and that's why Clinton and Trump have been spending so many days.
Introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around for a long, long year.
I accept your nomination.
I accept your nomination.
He has always been in full attack mode.
Grab them by the...
People in the Trump campaign just over the moon tonight.
If she can't win Pennsylvania and Michigan, we have a problem. It is possible that Donald Trump might win the presidency.
Just call me Lucifer, 'cause I'm in need of some restraint.
One of the things that's most important, and John has been talking about this quite a bit, is not just southern Florida, which tends to be Democratic, especially in the southeast, or north.
People, I'm standing here at the epicenter of a political earthquake. They said it couldn't be done. They said he didn't have a chance. But it's happened. Donald J. Trump will be the 45th president of the United States. Reporting live from the New York Hilton, this is Avery Brown.
I'm no expert in weapons. We have somebody here who is an expert on weapons. I would now like to call Justin Hammer, our current primary weapons contractor.
Let the record reflect that I observed Mr. Hammer entering the chamber, and I am wondering if and when any actual expert will also be in attendance.
Absolutely. I'm no expert. I defer to you, Anthony. You're the wonder boy. Senator, if I may well not be an expert, but you know who was the expert? Your dad, Howard Stark. Really a father to us all, and to the military-industrial age.
To live in peace and security.
Two states living side by side in peace and security. True security for all Israelis. We will also pursue peace between Israel and Lebanon.
In peace and security.
Israel and Syria.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must.
You will try.
Peace and security.
And a broader peace between Israel and its many neighbors. Must decide whether we are serious about peace and security. To recognize Israel's legitimacy and its right to exist in peace and security.
But let's just be clear, he was no flower child. He was a lion. We all know why we're here. In the last 6 months, Anthony Stark has created a sword with untold possibilities. And yet he insists it's a shield. He asks us to trust him as we cower behind it. I wish I were comforted, Anthony. I really do. I'd love to leave my door unlocked when I leave the house.
Thank you. Mr. President, Mr. General Secretary, distinguished delegates, half a world away from this place of peace, the firing, the killing, the bloodshed in two merciless conflicts have for the first time in recent memory diminished after adding terrible new names to the roll call of human horror. Names such as Halabja, Medushar, Inshar, and Spinbuldak. There is today hope of peace in the Persian Gulf and Afghanistan. So too in the highlands and coastal cities of southern Africa, places of civil war, places of occupation by foreign troops, talk of peace is heard. For the first time, the differences between East and West, fundamental differences over important moral questions dealing with the worth of the individual and whether governments shall control people or people control governments. For the first time, these differences have shown signs of easing.
Like you mentioned, the Vatican is actually releasing those findings right now. We just started a few minutes ago. But David Grush, he told News Nation special correspondent Ross Coulthart the Vatican was in possession of a UFO aircraft from 1933. Do we have time to listen to that, guys? Yeah, here it is.
1933 was the first recovery in Europe, in Magenta, Italy. They recovered a partially intact vehicle. Italian government moved it to a secure airbase in Italy for the rest of kind of the fascist regime until 1944, 1945, and the Pope Pius XII back-channeled that.
So the Vatican was involved?
Yeah, and told the Americans what the Italians had, and we ended up scooping it.
So let me be very clear about this. You're saying that the Catholic Church, the Vatican, they know about the existence of non-human intelligence on this planet?
Certainly.
We know this will take trillions, not billions of dollars. We also know that countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector, with trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders. It offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition.
But this ain't Canada. We live in a world of grave threats that Mr. Stark will not always be able to foresee. Thank you. God bless Iron Man. God bless America.
That is well said, Mr. Hammer.
Intelligence suggests that the devices seen in these photos are in fact attempts at making manned copies of Mr. Stark's suit. This has been corroborated by our allies and local intelligence on the ground, indicating that these suits are quite possibly at this moment operational.
Hold on a second, buddy. Let me see. Something here. Oh, boy, I'm good. I come in here for screens. I need them. Time for a little transparency. Now let's see what's really going on.
What is he doing?
If you'll direct your attention to said screens, I believe that's North Korea.
Can you turn that off?
The results of that morning in Geneva are seen in peace conferences now underway around the world on regional conflicts, and in the work of the UN here in New York, as well as in Geneva. But Mr. Secretary General, history teaches caution. Indeed, that very building in Geneva, where important negotiations have taken place, the Geneva Accords on Afghanistan, the Iran-Iraq negotiations, for example, we see it today as stone-like testimony to a failed dream of peace in another time.
Take it off.
Iran. No grave, immediate threat here. Is that Justin Hammer?
Right leg up.
How did Hammer get in the game?
Arm up.
Justin, you're on TV. Focus up.
Okay, give me a left switch. Left is going to turn to the right.
The overlords are a superior intelligence.
Pretty much the most polite alien invasion story that you will ever witness.
They tell everyone to stay calm.
We have come to help mankind.
We're not conquerors. We're enablers.
And then they explain that they're going to create a utopia.
They sort out our wars. They cure our diseases. We no longer have to fend for ourselves. Everything is just kind of perfect.
Israel's economic and military strength allows us to protect ourselves, but it also allows us something else. To strive for peace with the entire Arab world and with our closest neighbors, the Palestinians. An agreement with the Palestinians based on the 2 states for 2 people is the right thing for Israel's security, for Israel's economy, and for the future of our children.
What I've seen
not just in the Middle East, but also in the world and in life, is that when the forces of good are winning, the forces of evil will try to stop them, and that's really what I believe the terrorist attack was meant to do. I mean, Israel's economy was rocking in terms of all the different growth. It was a very attractive partner to a lot of people in the region. The progress between Saudi Arabia and Israel was progressing incredibly well. And I do think that poses a big threat to the forces of evil. If you have the Abraham Accords continuing and everyone coming together, that's something that obviously people will want to stop. So the attacks were absolutely vicious, terrible, that occurred, and that's really what was meant to be. So still a lot of possibilities for progress and positivity, but right now, obviously, this is a very important moment to see what's going to happen. In light of the attack, the Abraham Accords are more important than ever. Clearly, this is one of the hardest problem sets that's existed probably in geopolitics, but the end state has to look something like this, and it has to have two elements. Number one, Israel has to have the security to not be threatened by its neighbors and to be able to protect its citizens. That is absolutely crucial, is non-negotiable, and I do think a lot of the world agrees that that's something that should exist. The second element is that the Palestinian people have to have the opportunity to live a better life. And I think that if you go through the element, it's not just saying let's create a state, it has to be a state that can function and thrive, because if you don't create that, then the people will, again, find ways to blame other people instead of the leadership that's putting it there.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, a little too amazing.
The idea of a utopia is a little bit disconcerting.
There are no wars anywhere on the entire planet. They've given us the tools to cure our most terrible diseases. It's not like they're controlling us here.
Is that the end of your fairy tale?
Everybody runs by the same rules. Everybody is polite and nice and looks reasonably similar.
Without struggle, there's not a lot of grit in the oyster.
We get peace, we get security, we get harmony, but we lose a lot of cultural identity.
The lack of creativity is damaging. There's no motivation to do anything in utopia. There's no germs, no hot dogs that are notoriously bad for you.
You know, those types of things are important.
Music and culture and art, it kind of disappears.
Make us healthy, make us sleepy, make us fat. But if you challenge them, they come down like a fist.
Childhood End doesn't have an optimistic view, doesn't have a pessimistic view. It's about reality, the reality of the universe.
What do they want?
I think the business of creating this kind of utopia is an attempt at sugaring the pill.
Where's the elephant? Oh, shit! Oh, shit!
Wow. Yeah, I'd say most countries 5-10 years away. Hammer Industries 20.
I'd like to point out that test pilot survived.
I think we're done is the point that he's making. I don't think there's any reason.
The point is, you're welcome, I guess. Because I'm your nuclear deterrent. It's working. We're safe. America is secure. You want my property? You can't have it. But I did you a big favor. I have successfully privatized world peace.
The Palais des Nations was the headquarters of the League of Nations, an institution that was to symbolize an end to all war. And yet today, that institution and its noble purpose ended with the Second World War. Ended because the chance for peace was not seized in the 1930s by the nations of the world. Ended because humanity did not find the courage to isolate the aggressors, to reject schemes of government that serve the state, not the people. We're here today, Mr. Secretary General, determined that no such fate shall befall the United Nations. We're determined that the UN should succeed and serve the cause of peace for humankind.
Why are we being kept in the dark?
Just because the world appears to be perfect, there is still human feeling. It's okay to have questions.
Half the world thinks that you're their salvation. The other half wants to blow you out of the sky. The entire thing is summed up in that there is someone else pulling the strings here, and as much as you'd like to think that you have control, and that we allow you to think you have control, you don't.
It's supposed to be utopia. You've got to tell them what's going on.
What more do you want? For now! I tried to play ball with these ass clowns.
F*** you, Mr. Stark. F*** you, buddy. We're adjourned. We're adjourned for the day.
Okay.
You've been a delight.
We sort out your economic crises, health care, put an end to wars. Then you will be ready for the really rather nasty news that I have to tell you.
Dress this up in as much hippy-dippy crap as you like. This is an invasion.
So, Mr. Secretary General, we realize that even in this time of hope, the chance of failure is real. But this knowledge does not discourage us. It spurs us on, for the stakes are high. Do we falter and fail now and bring down upon ourselves the just anger of future generations? Or do we continue the work of the founders of this institution and see to it that at last freedom is enshrined and humanity knows war no longer?
What I've seen, not just in the Middle East, but also in the world and in life, is that when the forces of good are winning, the forces of evil will try to stop them, and that's really what I believe the terrorist attack was meant to do. I mean, Israel's economy was rocking in terms of all the different growth. It was a very attractive partner to a lot of people in the region. The progress between Saudi Arabia and Israel was progressing incredibly well. And I do think that poses a big threat to the forces of evil.
For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape.
The shooting of the 12 police officers in Dallas, Texas, has shaken the soul of our nation. Just a few weeks ago, I met with many of the men and women in the Dallas police force during my visit to Texas. They're not just police officers. They're mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sons and daughters. And they're all on my mind today. They're on everybody's mind. A brutal attack on our police force is an attack on our country and an attack on our families. We must stand in solidarity with law enforcement, which we must remember is the force between civilization and total chaos. Every American has the right to live in safety and peace. The deaths of Alton Sterling in Louisiana and Philando Castile in Minnesota also make clear how much more work we have to do to make every American feel that their safety is protected. Too many Americans are living in terrible poverty and violence. We need jobs, and we're going to produce those jobs. Racial divisions have gotten worse, not better. Too many headlines flash across our screens every day about the rising crime and rising death tolls in our cities. Now is the time for prayers, love, unity, and leadership. Our children deserve a better future than what we're making them live through today.
Well, if you have the Abraham Accords continuing and everyone coming together, that's something that obviously people will want to stop. So the attacks were absolutely vicious, terrible, that occurred, and that's really what was meant to be. So still a lot of possibilities for progress and positivity, but right now, obviously, this is a very important moment to see what's going to happen. In light of the attack, the Abraham Accords are more important than ever. Clearly, this is one of the hardest problem sets that's existed probably in geopolitics, but the end state has to look something like this, and it has to have two elements. Number one, Israel has to have the security to not be threatened by its neighbors and to be able to protect its citizens. That is absolutely crucial, is non-negotiable, and I do think a lot of the world agrees that that's something that should exist. The second element is that the Palestinian people have to have the opportunity to live a better life. And I think that if you go through the element, it's not just saying let's create a state, it has to be a state that can function and thrive, because if you don't create that, then the people will, again, find ways to blame other people instead of the leadership that's putting it there.
Jared Kushner, his big pet project was that 666 Fifth Avenue, that big office tower. He's going to tear it down, build something new, and he had to do a deal basically that gave it away.
Right, and so to give a
viewers a little background, I mean, this is an iconic building in New York. You know, in a city of iconic buildings, I mean, this is one that people walk along or walk past on Fifth Avenue. There's retail in the bottom, and then it's notably, you know, it's a nice skyscraper and a name that, or an address that is as memorable, we should say. They had big plans for it. At one point, they were talking about demolishing it and doubling it in size. And as you say, this was Jared Kushner's really ambitious project. It did not go the way that they thought it would. They were partnered with Vornado, and now to the rescue, and this to me is what's really notable, to the rescue and probably to the profit of its investors is Brookfield.
Yeah, Brookfield stepped into it and basically said, we'll take it for a 99-year lease.
Right.
That's how we will find new pathways to peace and security. That is the work that we must do.
Peace and security. Peace and security and coexistence.
A movement towards peace. If we have this triangle, economy, security, and peace, then peace can succeed.
Supposedly, laws God gave to Noah. If you break the laws, most punishments are beheading. George Bush Sr. signed it into law. He snuck it in with an Education Day recognition bill, recognizing the Jewish scholar who supports living under Noahide laws. For those that don't already know, there is an evil sect of Jewish people that practice the Kabbalah, mysticism, witchcraft. You know, where the tarot cards come from. Tarot cards are like a portable Kabbalah, if that makes sense. Both are hinged by a tree of life. It's a diagram with 10 points and 22 paths.
When you look at anything in the occult, all you have to do is compare it to the Bible. You're going to find out just about everything in the occult was either reversed or perverted from the Holy Scriptures. In the end, you're going to find out that Lucifer has never had an original idea yet.
Is the modern-day popularization of occultism, which has been one of the main objectives of the Theosophical Society. In her book, The Key to Theosophy, Blavatsky stated that one of the primary means of building a global brotherhood of man would be, quote, to encourage the study of those laws least understood by modern people, the so-called occult sciences. The occult sciences, stated Blavatsky, help develop and cultivate, quote, the hidden powers latent in man, thus giving him tremendous advantages over more ignorant mortals. The occult sciences include magic, mediumship or channeling, hypnosis, alchemy, and astrology, all of which are very popular in the New Age.
You have multiple books in here on astrology, telepathy, and just various books on magic.
Hashtag boycott KFC was among the top trends the past couple of days. It caused quite the stir online after a post went viral about the restaurant's decision to move to halal certified chicken at the vast majority of its restaurants here in Ontario. The move was made with KFC Canada Muslim team members, and it has prompted a wave of hateful comments online. Manisa Danabalan joins us live with more on this story. Manisa, how did this all unfold?
Nicole, what's a little confusing is that this move to halal actually began on May 15th. So the fried chicken chain has been serving the halal certified meat at most of its locations for almost 2 months. However, a letter that appears to be from KFC with its explanation for the decision is now circulating online. Let's take a look. According to KFC's website, beginning May 15th, the restaurant started to offer halal-certified chicken in Ontario except for locations in Thunder Bay and Ottawa.
Going halal is a good business choice, and if you look into it, almost all major fried chicken joints are already halal in Ontario, including Popeyes, Dave's Hot Chicken, Church's, Mary Brown's, and others. And KFC will be picking up a lot of business.
This picture of a letter that appears to be from KFC Canada on May 8th has been causing quite the stir on social media. The fast food company hasn't responded to Trending Now's calls or emails, so they haven't been able to confirm the letter's authenticity. While the first statement aligns with what's written on KFC Canada's website, the letter goes on to say that all chicken products are halal certified, and they discontinued pork products at all KFC locations, excluding establishments co-branded with Taco Bell.
You might know him better as Colonel Sanders. The Kentucky legend died at Jewish Hospital in December of 1980, 1 year after he was diagnosed with leukemia. In one of his last public appearances, Governor Brown awarded the colonel with the Distinguished Service Medallion and announced that a marble bust of the colonel would be put in the Capitol Rotunda in Frankfurt.
Highly appreciate this medal being to such few of us had it, John. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Even after his financial success, the colonel never forgot his humble beginnings. He was quick to donate to charity, including the Salvation Army, where he was on the advisory board, and helped out as a bell ringer.
People would do a double take. They couldn't really believe it was the colonel. And then when they saw it was him, they would come up and greet him and put a contribution in our Christmas kettle.
And so war is what the world got after the formation of the Federal Reserve there in America just before Christmas in 1913. And within 6 months we saw the outworking of this plan to bringing in the New World Order with the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand there in Sarajevo in June of 1914, which was the event which started off World War I. And this was all according to a plan that was laid out in the previous century by a man called Albert Pike with the help of 3 other leading Freemasons. Albert Pike was born in 1809 in Boston, studied at Harvard, then later served as Brigadier General in the Confederate Army. After the Civil War he was found guilty of treason and jailed. He was pardoned by fellow Freemason President Andrew Johnson in 1866, with whom he met at the White House the very next day. The only monument to a Confederate general in Washington, D.C. was erected in Pike's honour. Pike was one of the founding fathers and head of the ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, being the Grand Commander of North American Freemasonry from 1859 to 1891. In 1869 he was the top leader of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, and in 1871 wrote the Masonic Handbook, The Morals and Dogma of the ancient accepted rite of Freemasonry. And so Albert Pike's greatest claim to fame would be that as a 33rd degree leading Freemason in America there in Charlottesville, South Carolina, he set up the Palladian Rite with the help of a Jesuit by the name of John Peter de Smet Mazzini in Rome in Italy, where Mussolini came out of from a lodge there in Italy at the time of the Second World War. And likewise Otto von Bismarck, the leader of the Prussian Parliament and also the man who was most responsible for setting up the Second Reich in Germany, the First Reich being the Holy Roman Empire and the Third Reich being Adolf Hitler, who came up out of that lodge in Germany, and also Lord Henry Palmerston, who was a Knight of the Order of the Garter and the leading Freemason in England at the time, was also part of this Palladian Rite. And so he was the Prime Minister of England at the time of the Opium Wars in China, and also was Queen Victoria's Foreign Secretary. And so these are the men that set up this Palladian Rite that took over all the Western lodges from that time on. And we know, for example, that Albert Pike wrote a letter to Giuseppe Mazzini in August of 1871, and this is what he said about 3 world wars. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agentur, that is the agents of the Illuminati, between the British and Germanic empires would be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. And so here we see the outworking of the First World War was in fact the overtaking of the Tsar of Russia, and he was deposed and executed, and communism was established, and Russia became a fortress of atheistic communism. And this was financed by the bankers there in Wall Street. For example, we know that Jacob Schiff boasted on his deathbed that he gave $20 million in gold to the Russian Revolution. And so the Jews from Wall Street were financing the Jews in Russia, who were the Red Army, fighting the White Army, the native white people. And so the Federal Reserve created a Great Depression in the 1930s, which was the very opposite to the thing that it was supposed to do, which was to create economic stability. And so let's turn our attention now back to the plan of the international bankers, which is described in this letter between Albert Pike and Giuseppe Mazzini. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed, and so that political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. And of course in 1948 Israel declared independence after they had bombed the King David Hotel. During the Second World War, international communism must be strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would then be restrained and held in check until the time that we would need it for the final social cataclysm. And after the Second World War, of course, communism was made strong enough, and also we know the weaker governments were being taken over. And in 1945, at the Potsdam Conference between Truman, Churchill and Stalin, a large portion of Europe was simply handed over to Russia. And on the other side of the world, the aftermath of the war with Japan helped to sweep the tide of communism into China. So let's return now to the letter written by Albert Pike to Giuseppe Mazzini. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual and economic exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, that is, the origin of savagery and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against a world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment on be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. And so let's have a look now at a speech given by a rabbi back in 1952 there in Budapest in Hungary. And this was to all the rabbis talking about World War III. We're going to begin by looking at this book called Pawns in the Game by William Guy Carr. And in this book it points out the speech that was given by Rabbi Emanuel Rabinovich way back in 1952 in Budapest, Hungary, to a meeting of the Emergency Council of Rabbis. And so let's have a look at this speech now that was given. Greetings, my children. You have been called here to recapitulate the principal steps of our new program. As you know, we had hoped to have 20 years between wars to consolidate the great gains which we made from World War II. But our increasing numbers in certain vital areas is arousing opposition to us, and we must now work within every means at our disposal to precipitate World War III within 5 years. And of course, the Korean War happened 5 years after the end of World War II, and also the takeover of China and the Communist Revolution. And so this is the beginning of World War III. A goal which we have striven so concertedly for 3,000 years is at last within our reach, and because its fulfilment is so apparent, it behooves us to increase our efforts and our caution tenfold. I can safely promise you that before 10 years have passed, our race will take its rightful place in the world, with every Jew a king and every Gentile a slave. Applause from the gathering. You remember the success of our propaganda campaign during the 1930s, which aroused anti-American passions in Germany. At the same time, we were arousing anti-German passions in America, a campaign which culminated in the Second World War. A similar propaganda campaign is now being waged intensively throughout the world. A war fever is being worked up in Russia by an incessant anti-American barrage, while a nationwide anti-communist scare is sweeping America. This campaign is forcing all of the smaller nations to choose between the partnership of Russia or an alliance with the United States, and of course this represents the Cold War years, doesn't it?
Now asked the restaurant if they in fact removed all non-halal options and pork, but tonight we're still waiting to hear back. There's been lots of reaction online, some supporting the move that aligns with Muslim dietary restrictions, but others are calling to boycott KFC with some racist and Islamophobic comments.
It's really frustrating and disappointing to see a negative reaction, but at the same time, I'm not that surprised. Islamophobia and xenophobia, racism exists in Canada, and a lot of the times it comes from a place of ignorance.
There's your 22 major cards of the tarot, and also witches used to have 22 paths or courses of study. It's all the same old witchcraft, later called Kabbalah or tarot. Kabbalah originated in the 1600s, although they try and convince people it began way earlier. There's a lot of subtlety implied, though. In their rise to position, there's a bunch of ritualistic junk, and then they choose to be a goat instead of a sheep. The evils are all in there, and it's all based on the Old Testament and 12 tribes, you name it, 10 commandments. That makes it even more evil to me. Talk about the deepest depths of Luciferianism. And on the JewishScholars.org website, it talks about peace and love and how they want to implement the Noahide laws into the education systems and charities through the United Nations.
The New Age Almanac notes the success of Blavatsky's endeavor to spread occultism in the West. Quote, several hundred new occult organizations can be traced directly to the Theosophical Society. For example, drawing upon the esoteric work initiated by Theosophy, ritual magicians have attempted to attain the mastery of the world through occult means, in a measure only hinted at in Theosophical circles. Theosophy also nurtured a reborn astrology. Beginning with minuscule astrological groups in the late 19th century, astrology made an astounding comeback to become the most pervasive popular occult practice in the latter part of the 20th century. Like the New Age movement, the primary aim of occultism is the pursuit of the expansion or evolution of consciousness and the attainment of Christhood through spiritual initiation. Occultist Rudolf Steiner is a perfect example of this idea, as a collection of his lectures is entitled The Evolution of Consciousness as Revealed Through Initiation Knowledge. Aleister Crowley, arguably the most notorious occultist and Satanist of all time, is an even more profound example of the occult roots of the New Age. Author Nicholas Campion sums up Crowley's New Age lineage and his influence in the development of New Age thought. Quote, There were two important currents of New Age prophecy in the 20th century West until the 1950s. One was embedded in the theosophical and esoteric tradition, promoted by Alice Bailey, Rudolf Steiner, and Carl Jung. The other was magical, promoted by Aleister Crowley, and emphasized paganism and decadence. Crowley's vision of a new global religion, his understanding of all great prophets as manifestations of a single essence, and his desire to restore the West by teaching the East to the West mark him out as an heir to Blavatsky. Crowley's esotericism was by and large unoriginal. However, his most important contribution to New Age thought was to provide a statement of universal rights. Crowley's philosophy was fundamentally New Age. He propounded New Age ideas such as the following, quote, "Happiness lies within oneself. Every man and every woman is a star, and the infinite unity is our refuge. Since if our consciousness be in that unity, we shall care nothing for the friction of its component parts, and our light is the inmost point of illuminated consciousness." He believed that through meditation, quote, "the consciousness of the many may be melted to that of the one, leading to the, quote, expansion of consciousness to that of the infinite," which, as I previously cited, was exactly how Alice Bailey defined the New Age initiation process.
Look at the letter at the end and remember the sound it makes. Get ready. Kite. Yes, kite. Get ready to read this word the fast way. Get ready. Kid. Yes, kid. Sound it out. Get ready. Kid. Sound it out. Get ready. Kid. What word? Kid. Yes, kid. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready. What word? Steal. Yes, steal. Read these words the fast way. Get ready. Play. Yes, play. Get ready. Must. Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready. Kite. Yes, kite. Get ready. Kick. Yes, kick. Get ready. Steal. Yes, steal. Get ready. Play. Yes, play. Get ready. Must. Yes, must. Open your book up to lesson 60 on page 150.
Never see it coming. You think I'm joking?
This is a clear sign that occultism, Satanism, and the New Age movement are part of the same spiritual phenomenon.
And I love what you said about the evolution of the next consciousness.
What's evolving is consciousness. Consciousness is the thing that's evolving, and it expands in every way it can.
We are also granted the gift of experiencing an expansion within our own consciousness.
Through the expansion of consciousness.
We are moving away from this separation consciousness and moving into unity, oneness consciousness.
The solar flares, the vibrational frequency is actually awakening all of us, and we're awakening as one.
Because you are connected in consciousness to everybody.
We need to come together in mutual acknowledgement that we're all the same consciousness having different experiences. The change consciousness is about oneness, unity of everything.
Alice Bailey made it very clear that occultism was the source for her view of the Christ, and she believed that this New Age occult Christ would soon overthrow the Jesus of traditional Christianity. Quote, "It can be expected that the Orthodox Christian will at first reject the theories about the Christ which occultism presents. At the same time, this same Orthodox Christian will find it increasingly difficult to induce the intelligent masses of people to accept the impossible deity and the feeble Christ which historical Christianity has endorsed. Occultism presents a Christ who is present and living, who is known to those who follow him, who is a strong and able executive and not a sweet and sentimental sufferer, who has never left us, but who has worked for 2,000 years through the medium of his disciples, the inspired men and women of all faiths, all religions, and all religious persuasions, who sees divinity in them all, and who comprehends the techniques of the evolutionary development of the human consciousness. These ideas the intelligent public can and will accept. Then the picture of a Christ demanding a unique position to the exclusion of all other sons of God will fade out in the wonder of the true apostolic succession, in which many sons of God, on different rays, of differing nationalities and with varying missions, are to be seen historically leading humanity along the path of divine unfoldment and nearer to God, the source. Occult or esoteric means that which is hidden or secret, and refers to knowledge only known to the initiated. Occult teachings are usually associated with the idea of spiritual awakening, which is a very popular idea in the New Age. One becomes awakened when they have learned a hidden truth about the world and themselves, and thus they become initiated into the secrets or mysteries of the ages.
And it says, for this sculpture, Mr. Kiefer has cast in lead a colossal open book carried aloft by eagle's wings spanning 30 feet. This will be supported by a 20-foot tall column encircled by a snake with its head erect and tongue hissing at the book. A number of other giant lead books will be strewn on the ground at the base of this theatrical tableau. The piece is obscurely titled Uraeus, referencing the upright form of the Egyptian cobra associated with the serpent goddess Wadjet, and used as a symbol of power on the crowns of pharaohs. But the work, evocative of both a lectern and an altar, is open to multiple readings. And it gets into some stuff here, but I found this website here, the Public Art Fund, which is the place that funded this sculpture here. And it says here, the sculpture's cryptic title, Uraeus, refers to the erect shape of the Egyptian cobra associated with the serpent goddess Wadjet and a symbol of power and divine authority. The wings evoke the headdresses and necklaces worn by Egyptian royalty in homage to the vulture goddess Nekbet. Wadjet and Nekbet were the guardians of Lower and Upper Egypt, respectively, and following ancient Egyptian unification, became the joint patrons of the civilization. When conceiving this monumental sculpture, Kiefer was recalling Friedrich Nietzsche's famous philosophical work of fiction, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, from 1891, with its ideas of the will of power, the death of God, and the Übermensch, or Superman, as the ultimate aspiration of human beings. Nietzsche described Zarathustra thus, quote, "This book, with the voice bridging centuries, is not only the highest book there is, the book that is truly characterized by the air of the heights. The whole fact of man lies beneath it at a tremendous distance. It is also the deepest born out of the innermost wealth of truth, an inexhaustible well to which no pal descends without coming up again filled with gold and goodness." In Kiefer's imagination, word and image, sacred text, and icon have the power to soar upwards, transcending reality and offering hope of redemption. We've been saying this the whole time. They're looking for redemption without Jesus Christ, redemption through the hands of man, not from God. So this has always been the occult promise. They're at it still. They've been at it for centuries. I think they're getting a lot closer, and that's why they're starting to become even more bold in proclaiming these pursuits out in the public like this, especially at the Rockefeller Center here. Uraeus is both gigantic lectern and altar. You see that, guys? They say it's an altar. They just straight up say this is an altar to an Egyptian goddess. The presence of the snake that insinuates itself at the foot of the column introduces an element of danger and death, as if the monument is being undermined. Yet in more than one mythology, the serpent is a creature of wisdom and secret knowledge. Kiefer's wide-ranging art, which embraces historical memory, politics, religion, and myth, is layered with such multiple meanings and paradoxes. So again, admitting it's an altar, admitting that the serpent actually represents wisdom and secret knowledge, which it does for certain traditions, but that's what they're trying to push for at the Rockefeller Center. And so they're not even shy about this, guys. This is occult architecture being just placed right in front of us. And, you know, those folks who don't know any better, who live in that community or whatever, they're going to celebrate it and be a part of this and whatnot. I think there's a lot of symbolism going on here. And look at this picture here, how it aligns with the building here. I mean, this is all about ascension. This is all about an upward mobility of human beings and, you know, becoming gods. It says here in this Gagosian article, Anselm Kiefer's monumental body of work represents a microcosm of collective memory, visually encapsulating a broad range of cultural, literary, and philosophical allusions from the Old and New Testament, Kabbalah mysticism, Norse mythology, and Wagner's Ring Cycle to the poetry of Ingeborg Bachmann and Paul Celan. And of course, the idea of a serpent going up the staff represents the Kundalini, spiritual ascension into the crown chakra, and then, you know, you reach enlightenment. This sort of practice and teaching is pretty much the religion of the elite, so it's no surprise here that they're representing this here. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Really, the New Age movement is an old philosophical movement, but I feel like even though we've been talking about it and exposing a lot of it for years here, we have to keep doing it because, again, it really truly is the religion of a lot of these folks in the elite, and they do push that ideology upon the masses. So stay watchful, stay vigilant, be sober-minded. Have an awesome day, guys. God bless.
It's a spear. And at the very tip of that spear is one of Satan's little monuments, one of his little vanities, called the Grand Army arch. Now, you tell me, folks, what you're looking at here, okay? We got our 2 pillars, very grand, mind you. These are not small things. This is a person down here, with what they will tell you are eagles on globes on either side. Do your research. With the rider on the chariot and all manner of things up here that you just need to research for yourself. Please, please do it, because this is important. This is how Satan operates on this earth. Now, if you look just beyond that arch, there's another monument here. It's a fountain, and it's got all kinds of neat little sculptures in it. That's Poseidon, and notice the trident. The same trident that we find out here in New York Harbor, right next to Sandy Hook, with our devil. The point I want to make is, if we go right from this cow, and we go straight through that arch, right by our Poseidon monument, we wind up right over, almost precisely, at the Trump Tower. Okay?
6 hours, 42 minutes, 12 seconds. That is one world. It leads you here, despite your destination. Under the Milky Way. 6
basic principles of time travel in there. You got your vessel and your portal. Vessel can be just about anywhere else like a spacecraft.
Like a DeLorean.
No craft.
You know, I love that movie, the way they shot it. It's so, like futuristic, you know?
6 hours, 42 minutes, 12 seconds. That is when the world will end. And it's something quite peculiar. 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, 12 seconds. That is when the world will end. Wish I knew what you were looking for. Might I know what you were finding? Wish I knew what you were looking for.
calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
But a bright line in the sand, and we will protect you, that I can tell you, and we will say enough is enough.
But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States? Enough was enough, and I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
A future that Ernest Cline, the writer of the book, envisioned. I was very careful with Ernie collaborating with me every step of the way to be able to find the movie narrative inside this dense forest of Ernie's profound imagination.
The Oasis being the ultimate toy box with all the toys in the world, and then playing that with one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. It results in just amazing action and such a fun adventure.
Ernest Cline is such a visionary, and I think has seen the future before any of us possibly could even imagine it.